Are you having trouble deciding which team you want to choose for Dynasty Mode on EA College Football 26? Well, I'm here to help. Today I'm going to go over 10 more teams that you should consider for Dynasty Mode in this year's game. I already have a part 1 for this video where I went over the smaller school teams you should consider. Today we're going to go over some of the power conference schools you should look at. I've divided our teams into 3 tiers. We have the grueling rebuilds, the intriguing challenges, and the most fun teams to use in the game this year. If you're looking for a truly grueling rebuild, the Purdue Boilermakers are probably a good place to look. They might be the worst power conference team in the entire game. 77 overall, only a 2-star prestige. These guys were absolutely horrific last year, and their roster has been left in rough shape. But instead of being a group of 5 team having to play other group of 5 opponents in the conference schedule, these guys are in the Big Ten, dealing with teams like Ohio State and Oregon. This roster is quite a bit worse than a lot of the group of 5 teams we recently went over, which goes to show where this team is. It'll likely be a heavy battle at the quarterback position, all 4 guys within a few ratings of each other. The highest of the group is sophomore Ryan Brown, who played a little bit for Purdue last year. Behind him, they've got another sophomore in Malachi Singleton, who they got in the transfer portal from Arkansas, along with freshman Shane Honeycutt, 85 speed, an intriguing player for the future. There are not many household names on this team. I do like running back Devin Maccabee. He's the highest rated player on the roster, 90 speed. A good player to have early on and try to help keep your team afloat, but he's a senior, so you're only going to have him for 1 year. Many of the higher rated players on this team are not going to be sticking around, so you'll be able to make it your own pretty quickly, whether that's through recruiting or the transfer portal. Another team in the same neighborhood of Purdue of being really not that good is Boston College. The Eagles are a 79 overall, and they are a 3-star prestige, so a little bit better than Purdue. What I like about Boston College, or really any other team in the ACC, is the goal of trying to revive that conference. With many of the top teams, such as Clemson, Miami, Florida State, North Carolina, all trying to go to other conferences, specifically the SEC, you try to help revive the ACC or make a lot of changes with those schools maybe moving on. You'll have a quarterback battle with senior Grayson James, the highest rated player in the room. But if you want to go with a younger option, sophomores Dylan Lonergan and Cole Warner are both good options. In terms of high-end talent, much like Purdue, there's not a whole lot to get excited about here. I do like their secondary. They have a good safety duo. They also have a talented skill position group led by wide receiver Lewis Bond, who's probably the most exciting player on the year 1 roster. Bond as well, though, is a senior. And I think similarly to Purdue, you'll be able to make this roster your own fairly quickly. The final team in the grueling rebuild tier, they're in a much different spot than Purdue and Boston College to me, but their roster still needs a lot of help. The Minnesota Golden Gophers. Again, in the Big Ten, they've got to deal with teams like Ohio State and Oregon on their schedule throughout the season. But I feel like this team is quite a bit different than the other schools that I have in this tier. Minnesota has some really good players on their roster. I mean, future high draft picks in the NFL. And if you're looking for really fun players to get to use early on, the Gophers could be your school. Coy Parrish is one of the most exciting defensive players in the game, a 91 overall true sophomore. He is a total freak show and a dynamic player at safety. Along with him, you have one of the best backfields in America. Darius Taylor, the junior, he is a stud, 91 overall. And then right with him, A.J. Turner is an 88. The two of them create a dynamic run game for Minnesota that you're probably going to have to lean on early because their quarterback situation is dire. 72 overall, Drake Lindsey is the starter. He is a young guy. He's a freshman. Traditional pocket passer. Not the fastest, but he's really big, and he's got a good arm. If you're looking for someone who can run a little bit more, Minnesota's got some options who aren't too much worse. Dylan Whitkey is a 71 overall with 77 speed. And then down below them a little bit, another sophomore, Max Shikanjansky, is a 69 overall with 83 speed. So however you like your quarterback to play, there's a few different archetypes that the Gophers have. As I mentioned a second ago, this team has some really good players at the top of the list with Parrish, Taylor, and Turner, but the rest of the roster is quite shaky. And with guys like Taylor and Turner probably headed to the NFL soon, and Coy Parrish potentially looking at the transfer portal, you're going to have to replace those guys, and players of that caliber simply do not grow on trees. So you may only get these All-Americans for one, if you're lucky, 2 seasons. And then from there, you're going to have to build the rest of the roster, which is not in good shape. But getting to use those players, I'm sure, would be a lot of fun. Moving into the second tier, the intriguing challenges. I think the Kansas Jayhawks might be perfect for Dynasty this year. And maybe I am a little bit biased. I just had a full series with Kansas on EA College Football 25. But for a lot of the reasons that I liked Kansas last year still apply this year. This is a talented team with some good players, but it's a very old roster, and you'll be able to reshape it quite quickly. Of course, at quarterback, they've got Jaylen Daniels, one of the most fun players in the country. You're only going to have him for 1 year, but it's going to be a very enjoyable season. Replacing Daniels is not going to be easy, though, although there are some potential options on the roster currently. True freshman quarterback David McComb is a 74 overall. He looks pretty solid. Redshirt freshman Isaiah Marshall has 88 speed. Really athletic player. And then Cole Ballard behind them isn't very good, but he is the son of Chris Ballard, the GM at the Colts. Getting to use Jaylen Daniels last year in the Kansas Dynasty was so much fun. We only had him for 1 year, but it was one of the most fun seasons of quarterback play I've ever had on this channel. So I encourage you guys, if you have a chance to use Jaylen Daniels for a full season, you should do it, because it was a spiritual experience. There are not many quarterbacks in the country like Daniels who have the same combination of athleticism, speed, and arm talent. Like Daniels, though, the rest of this roster is largely comprised of seniors. Every single one of their best players, senior. Every single one. The highest rated non-senior on the team is all the way down here at a 78 overall, with sophomore corners Jaleel Hurley, the transfer from Alabama, and Jalen Todd, who we got to use quite a bit in the Kansas Dynasty on EA College Football 25. The next school in this second tier is the Vanderbilt Commodores. I wasn't really sure where to put them because they are 2.5-star prestige in the SEC. So you could make the argument that they belong probably in the hardest tier, given that they are the worst team in the best conference in the country. However, their roster really is not in too bad of shape. They're an 84 overall going into the first year, and they've got some really good players to start with, specifically at quarterback. As I said just a moment ago, there are not many quarterbacks as exciting as Jaylen Daniels. One of the very few who might have him beat is senior Diego Pavia, who took the college football world by storm last year, returns to Vanderbilt for his senior season, where he's going to be one of the most fun quarterbacks to use in the game. The problem is there's really not much at all behind him, and the Commodores are kind of screwed once he's gone. You've got a couple of options: Everett Donaghy, who's a freshman, Jeremy St. Hilaire, who's a sophomore, but neither of those guys are all that encouraging, especially considering you're playing in the SEC, the most talented conference head-to-toe in America. This roster has some really solid players on it, though, towards the top. Eli Stowers, 93 overall tight end, one of the very best players at his position in the country, although you're probably only going to have him for 1 year. I would expect that he declares for the draft after this season, so he's a guy who you're going to have to find a way to replace pretty early on. With Stowers and Pavia only here for 1 season, it'll be hard to keep Vanderbilt good post-2025. The once proud Michigan State Spartans have become one of the more irrelevant teams in the Big Ten since Kenneth Walker left a few years ago. Despite that, I think they're going to be one of the most fun teams to use in the game because they have a really intriguing group of athletes who have really high ceilings but have not yet been able to tap into their potential. I think that perfectly describes their quarterback, junior Aiden Childs, who through his first 2 seasons in college, particularly last year at Michigan State, there was a lot of ups and a lot of downs. He's a fun athlete who can really run. He's got a very strong arm, and I think the potential with him is really high if he can figure it out. It's not like he's a freshman, though. He's only got 2 years to do it. Once Childs is gone, there are a couple of options on the roster you can look to replace him with freshman Leo Hannon or Alessio Milivojevic. What I like most about this team, though, is the group of pass catchers. Their 4 highest rated players are either wide receivers or tight ends. with Jack Belling, Krishan McCray, Amari Kelly, and the guy who I'm most excited about in this group, true sophomore Nick Marsh, who had a pretty good freshman season. He's got at least 2 years at Michigan State. I could see him declaring for the NFL after his junior season, but if not, you're going to have a really, really good receiver to build the offense around for possibly the next 3 seasons. I think Michigan State can be a really fun team, and they can be a good team if Aiden Childs hits his potential. But if not, this team could prove to be a pretty big challenge, competing with Michigan in terms of recruiting and obviously playing in the Big Ten. The fourth and final team I have in this second tier is the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They come in as a 79 overall, which I believe is the same as both Boston College and Minnesota. But I have Georgia Tech a tier ahead of those two schools because I think their roster is in definitely better position than both of them. They're going to be one of the most explosive offenses, not just in the ACC, but in the entire game. And unlike Boston College and Minnesota, they've got a stud at the quarterback position with senior Haynes King. He's pushing 25 years old. He is a grandpa, but at 6'3" with 91 speed, he's going to be one of the more fun players to use at the position in the game this year. There isn't a ton to be excited about behind him, but it's a very young group, with the other 4 quarterbacks here all being freshmen. They have a really good group of skill position players for Haynes King to get the ball to. Eric Rivers, 92 overall, 92 speed. He's one of the 5 highest rated receivers in the game. Jamal Haynes, 90 overall running back. Malik Rutherford, 86 overall receiver with 91 speed. There are not many teams in the game this year who have both a 90-plus wide receiver and running back. So for Georgia Tech to have all these guys to get the ball from a really good quarterback in Haynes King, along with having one of the best uniform wardrobes in the game, I think this can be a really fun choice for your Dynasty Mode, but you're going to have to find a way to replace these guys. And as I mentioned earlier with Boston College, you're also going to try to revive the ACC or potentially change the conference into your image. Let's move into the third tier now. More of your fun rebuilds. Teams that are definitely competing to make the college football playoff. And the Kansas State Wildcats are first on the list. I'm definitely not the biggest Kansas State fan in the world, but even I can tell you that this is going to be one of the most fun teams to use in college football 26. And I have a feeling they are going to be a very popular choice online because their backfield, with Dylan Edwards at running back and Avery Johnson at quarterback, is going to be glitchy. We'll start with Johnson, the junior, 88 overall. I feel like with some of his ratings, he plays kind of similarly to a Kyler Murray type. He's super agile, he's super elusive, makes guys miss in space, but he's also 6'3" and can really sling it. Once he's gone, Blake Barnett, 89 speed, another super fast quarterback you can replace him with. And then Dylan Edwards is going to be one of the most fun players to use in the entire game. 89 overall, 95 speed, 98 acceleration, and 95 agility. These two guys are going to be unfair at times, making guys miss. It's going to be really hard to bring either of these two down, and they're going to make Kansas State very dangerous. The Big 12 feels wide open, and I think Kansas State could be right at the top of the list of teams who can contend to win the conference and make the playoff. Once Johnson and Edwards are gone, though, you're going to have to figure out how to retool this roster. The second team in this tier, also in the Big 12, is the Colorado Buffaloes, who have been college football's most polarizing team over the last few years with Coach Prime. Eyes are still on him and this program, even with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders now in the NFL. I don't think this team is quite as good as Kansas State immediately, but I think they're better set up for success into the future. I think they've got more good young players. Jordan Seaton at the top of the list, 92 overall offensive tackle. He's a true sophomore on a fast track to being a first-round pick in 2 years from now. And they might have their quarterback position set for a while. Caden Salter, the transfer from Liberty, 90 speed. He'll be a good starter the first year. And then you can hand the reins to Juju Lewis, the highly regarded freshman who's already a 79 overall. And if you redshirt him, he could have 4 years of eligibility. They've got a good group of receivers, a really solid offensive line, some playmakers in the secondary. I think their roster is really well-rounded. And with having a guy like Juju Lewis already here, you could potentially be set at the quarterback position for the next 5 years. So if you like the idea of using already a team who has a lot of good things established, I think Colorado could be that. The next team in this tier is the South Carolina Gamecocks in the SEC. I'm going to go on record and say this will be the most fun and possibly the most broken team to use in the game. South Carolina starts off ranked number 12, so they are firmly in the mix of grabbing a playoff spot. But in the SEC, they're going to have to play against some really good teams. This roster has some of the most exciting players in college football, though, and that starts at the quarterback position with redshirt sophomore Lenoris Sellers, who's a 91 overall. He's one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the entire game, but he is draft eligible after this year, and it would make sense to see him potentially look to declare for the draft. Well, much like Colorado, South Carolina is prepared for that. They got Aaron Noland from the transfer portal from Ohio State, along with sophomore Drew Overton. So they have two options once Sellers is gone. Lenoris Sellers is not the only great player on this team, though. True sophomore Dylan Stewart, he might be the best defensive player in the entire country. 6'5", 245, 91 speed, a dominant pass rusher who's on a fast track, not just to go in the first round, but probably be a top 5 pick in 2 years from now. Not to mention, they have this guy, Nick Harbert, 6'5", 240 pounds, 99 speed. The most fun player to use in the entire game. He's not rated the highest. I think he's in the low 80s. Yeah, an 82. He's a junior with 2 years of eligibility, but there's nobody in the entire country who has his combination of size and speed. So that's going to wrap up the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know which team you will be choosing for Dynasty Mode in EA College Football 26. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Dynasty content here on the channel. Peace out.